Right now, I'm doing a dispersal draft, and if you don't know, it's when you have a dynasty league with multiple people leave, and they need to fill the teams. But some of these teams are really bad, and so you just wind up having a separate draft where, say there's four teams that need to be taken over. You invite four new managers, and they all do a draft of all the remaining assets, or all the assets are pooled together from the four teams that left, and all the four new members then do a draft, right? So I'm in the middle of a dispersal draft, and so I thought it might be helpful or useful to someone if I shared kind of my thoughts as I went through the dispersal draft process. And yeah, I'll pull it up and we can look at each pick and kind of my thought process behind each one. Okay, so we're doing this dispersal on the clock fantasy. This is a site that is relatively new. It's very useful tool. Has all sorts of different things on it, but we'll focus mainly on this dispersal draft. Right. So randomized, I got the fourth pick in the dispersal. So there's five managers here. We're all picking available players from the previous teams, and we started off with Bijan, May, Jefferson. This is like a regular Superflex, it's pretty standard dynasty setup. And I was sitting there on the clock and with the first round pick, and I was like, I really, really wanted to take uh, Bowers. He was on my mind. I decided to not go with Bowers because I think in general in tight end premium, tight ends can get a little overinflated where they have to be the top end tight end for them to actually pay off at some of the prices that you have to pay for them in a tight end premium league. And for those that don't know, a tight end premium league is when they artificially boost up tight end scoring by giving a half a point more per reception. So I pretty much didn't wound up not wanting to go tight end, but I really wanted to take Jeremiah Love because I was looking at the board and the players available. And a thing that I'm starting to fold more into my process that Jacob Sanderson has kind of talked about in the past, which is you want to like keep in mind that we want to that like the most valuable thing in dynasty is scarcity, right? Like what's the most scarce thing? The most scarce thing is players that score a ton of points, right? Whether they're young or old, they're scarce assets. There's not many of them, right? And so taking that idea of scarcity into this draft, I just wanted to see like, okay, what types of players are scarce at which positions, right? And so I really was looking at the receiver position in this draft and thinking, man, it's pretty scarce. There's not a lot of depth. And the running back. So pretty much the running back, receiver, and tight end, there wasn't quite a lot of depth there. So I really was struggling to kind of think through what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion that I should just take Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round because there was a small chance that Jeremiah Love, who was my initial first choice, would slip to me at the next pick, which if I had taken Jeremiah Love, I don't know if the guy after me would have taken St. Brown at the turn there. So that's generally how I played it. I was like, Amon Ra is a top end receiver. Let me lock him in, and then I can hopefully get Jeremiah Love in the second round. And that's exactly what I was able to do, right? Now quarterback, there's quite a bit of depth, right? So I was like, I can probably hold off on the position. I think in Superflex it can kind of go a little overstated. Obviously, top end producers at the quarterback position are difference makers, right? But I oftentimes find it hard to predict when a pocket passer type of quarterback will actually be a top end player in any given year. I think it's very situation driven and less so talent as it has been in years past. Obviously, rushing quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Lamar and Jaden Daniels, they're going to have a higher floor. Like they're going to be top five quarterbacks as long as they stay healthy, generally speaking, just because that rushing value is so stable and predictive. Passing is not quite the same. So I'm looking and I'm like, man, there's a lot of depth at the quarterback position. A lot of these like really good, solid, real life quarterbacks that I think in any given year could give me a spike year, right, where they wind up being a top five, top 10 quarterback, and just off of like pure passing volume and maybe they just hit the good side of variance that year. But I've also been coming around to this idea that the playoffs matter just as much as the regular season. Like this is an idea that the best ball bros harp on a lot, which makes sense because they're playing these very large field tournaments that you know are hard to win. But ultimately, I think that. But ultimately, I think that we're kind of only looking at the wins above replacement or the value above replacement over the course of the full season in managed season long leagues more than we should. I think there's an overemphasis on that portion of it. When you make the playoffs and you're in a small sample of 2, 3 games, anything can happen. Like we saw last year, Trevor Lawrence popped off down the stretch, and that type of performance can come from any of these like really solid pocket passers if they're just like on a hot streak or hitting their stride in the particular moment. It's not very predictable, but I think accounting for it is kind of valuable because it allows you to take a position where you don't have to pay up at the quarterback position because a lot of that quarterback value is the season long value. It's not on a week to week basis. There's a lot of variance in quarterback scoring. Obviously, good quarterbacks are more likely to score high in any given week, but when you look at the individual, when you look at smaller samples, it kind of evens out. Like the top end quarterbacks don't have as much of an edge, and so that was kind of generally my strategy. And then I I then took around at the next pick. You had I had Rashi Rice available to me, and to me, Rice is one of the most undervalued players in all of Dynasty right now. He is projected as a top 12 receiver in redraft, and he's a young player. But for whatever reason, in the Dynasty community, we don't have him ranked very high. So whenever there's a discrepancy between redraft projection and their Dynasty rank in in a player that's young, uh, it doesn't make any sense, right? The Dynasty value equation is simply redraft production times age. Like if they're old, obviously their redraft production is not gonna matter as much, or it's not gonna be as close to their dynasty value. But like young players that are projected a lot of points should be valued a lot higher. That's my point, and he's not that highly valued. So it's really weird. I was fist pumping to take Rashi Rice there. So we started off with the Mon Ra, the 101, and Rashi Rice, and then we followed it up with Chase Brown. That's the point in the draft where I'm like, man, the running back position is just getting very, very thin and very, very scarce, right? And never want to put yourself in a position where you're chasing after a specific position of and players are lower value at that specific position uh, because you're kind of reaching at that point, and it doesn't feel great. Like you finish the draft and you're like, man, I don't like my team, right? And I think that's what happened with Leo Man here is he went running back, quarterback, and then he gets to the this fifth round here and he has to take receiver. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll take Rome because I need receiver talent. And then he takes DJ Moore, and then he takes DK, and then takes Golden, and takes Worthy. It has a ripple effect on the rest of your draft in a negative way where you're just like, okay, I don't have the value at the high end at this position. I need to get it in the aggregate, and that is a scary place to be, right? You generally want to be in a position where you're just soaking up as much market value or as much projected point value if you're contending as you can. Um, I really mean like real true value. Like how do you value them? You want to soak up as much of that value as you can, because like I said, I think Rice is way undervalued by the market. I think Chase Brown is probably a little bit undervalued too. There's some stink on him as a later round um, rookie. And then I came around and I'm thinking, okay, I'll probably want to get a rookie pick here because Jadarian Price, Casey Concepcion, those are guys. Lemon, those are guys I'm like, okay, I can see there's an upside case for them, and then the remaining players, there's not much interest for me to take because I feel like I kind of know who Ibuka is. He's an okay receiver. He's not an elite receiver. I feel like I know Dunze is kind of in that same boat. Whereas like that 105, that player has upside, could have upside, and that was my sentiment there. And not only that, but I think whenever you can get in a position to get a rookie pick, that's good because liquidity and how easy it is to sell an asset is a very important thing to me. The rookie picks, everybody wants them. There's a high degree of, you know, liquidity where you can trade them at any moment. And so it positions you in a more flexible way. Whereas if I took a Buka or Rome, it's like, okay, I'm tied to this player being good, or I'm tied to hoping that somebody else in my league thinks that they're good and want them at their current market price, which I honestly, the way the two were falling in this draft, I already kind of know that like 4 or 5 people don't actually view them as highly as the market, right? So a lot of this is like also feeling out your league, seeing what they value and what they don't value, right? And then finally, like uh, the guy after me picked 2 quarterbacks. I then was like, okay, it's finally time where I think quarterback is a good value. And Dak Prescott, I mean, they've got 2 weapons in Pickens and CeeDee Lamb that are awesome. I mean, this passing offense is just going to be pretty good. Uh, he's if I were to bet on any pocket passing quarterback to score highly, it might be him, right? There, he's got an awesome situation there, and I think Ryan Flournoy is a little undervalued. Ferguson, their tight end, like they've got some pass catchers there. I did just do a video on Flournoy, but after that, uh, I had to wait all the way around this way. I got on the clock. Pretty easy decision. The 107. I snatched that up. Maybe that's Kenyon Sadiq or Casey Concepcion. We'll see how the draft pans out, or maybe I'll even trade that pick. But again, just with the 105, I like having that flexibility. And the remaining players, I'm like, they don't really do anything for me. I mean, maybe Derrick Henry is a good buy there because of his potential from a point scoring standpoint, but that's a little bit too risky for me, and I figured I didn't really need it. I think I can be pretty competitive without it, right? And then after that, I came back around and took Baker Mayfield, which just needed a quarterback too. He was the best quarterback remaining. I think it was the end of a tier of quarterbacks where I was okay with them being my starter. The current only available quarterbacks are awful. Um, I mean, Malik Willis, Stafford, Bryce Young all went after I took Mayfield there, and I prefer Mayfield over all of them by quite a bit. So that was nice to snag him, and he also has a very fantasy friendly profile where he's like very gunslinger esque, I think. And then coming back around, I wasn't quite sure what players available I was interested in. We're at this point the only pick available was the 110. I think once you get to the very end of the first, the players there are not good. They're very questionable at best. This year, I think I think late the late first is like closer to like a second round pick in this year. So I really was just like I like Monungai. I think he showed some good stuff last year. He's not necessarily a pass catcher, but I think he has the ability to catch the ball. And so if Swift ever were ever go down, I mean Monungai is gonna be awesome, I think. And so that was kind of the thesis there, is that he could just really take over this offense in the run game there, and that offense is amazing, right? With led by Ben Johnson, and even if that didn't happen, even if Swift was healthy, I think there's a path where Monangai does offer you value with Swift still there, because in Detroit you obviously had Gibbs and Demont sharing touches, and both are fantasy viable. So I don't think Swift is as good as Gibbs, so I'm just not really as worried. And I think Monangai maybe not as good as Montgomery, but he's very, very solid. And the offensive line's good, the team's good. So that's a fun player. I know he's a later round draft pick, but I think the fact that they didn't invest in the position in the NFL draft tells me that, like, hey, they really, really love Monangai and really trust him. And so coming back around, it's looking bleak. So it's Superflex. I like Michael Penix still. I don't think he's a bad player. I think the circumstances were just kind of rough last year. There's a reason why the coach got fired. He obviously got injured, and so there's quite a big injury discount on him. I'm not too worried about Tua. Tua's not good. I think we've seen that at this point, and the only reason he would play is if Penix isn't healthy to play, right? So there's a slight concern that maybe Tua looks fine and keeps Penix off the field a little bit longer than we want, but again, I don't think Tua is that good. I think Penix is just the better player. So it's a bet on the talent, and the fact that he's just so cheap now. What if everything from last year was just kind of BS?